probably actually smaller, but a similar pattern to what's happened in the adult system.
The task force is reviewing sentencing, juvenile certification, court records, and the success of the system.
But some in the juvenile justice system say the focus shouldn't be on what happens after a child gets to police headquarters. They say the focus should be on what happens before they ever walk through the door.
We don't need more laws or rules, in my opinion. What we need is more resources and new ways of dealing with preventive issues.
Judge Gerald Martin has been hearing juvenile cases for years. He says the system works well, but wants to see fewer children entering the courtroom in the first place.
I think it's a mistake to just look at lawyers and juries and sentencing guidelines and courts. And it's a mistaken focus.
But the task force says even though prevention was not a part of their original task, testimony has convinced them to address it.
We have not reached the stage of decision-making. We haven't voted on anything yet, so you really can't speak for the group. But I sense a fairly strong consensus in the group that prevention is a legitimate issue we need to address.
And that's all Judge Martin needs to hear.
There comes a time when there should be some action.
In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
Yeah.
We were just over there closing up for the day, and the doors were open here, and smoke was coming billowing out the doors, so I come over and shut the doors and put 2 CO2 extinguishers in there and shut the air down and died the fire down mostly until the fire department got here.
Got that built. And the new fishing, the boat launch is going to be put in down by 31st Avenue East and East 2nd Street before the end of the summer. That was also our club's idea.
Not really. Sometimes it gets a little time-consuming, because you're standing on your feet for roughly 8.5 hours.
Like most of us, Kristen Urbia has the usual complaints about the workplace. But overall, she likes her job putting together postal bins. Kristen works for Minnesota Diversified Industries, a private nonprofit company. It's the state's largest employer of disabled workers. Open for just over a year, Hibbing plant manager Gary Fleslin says it's been a good experience, one more companies should try.
Well, I think it's very important to employ somebody with disabilities. I think all too many times people are overlooked, and it's more of what they cannot do rather than what they can do. Once you get an employee into a work setting, it's amazing how much they actually can contribute.
And put the clip on the box.
For Vandala Foss, a paycheck means she can live on her own and pay her own bills, and she looks forward to coming to work every day. But as more and more companies are finding out, disabled workers aren't the only ones benefiting. Their contributions are proving to be a big asset to the company bottom line.
Our turnover rate is quite low, and all in all, it seems like the employees like to come, like to show up for work, and like to think that they're a part of the company.
So if the benefits of employing the disabled include low turnover rates and high worker morale, what's the downside?
If there is, I really don't see it.
What Flesland does see is people working together as a team.
A lot of them here, they're not here for the work. They're here for the companionship, you know, the friendship. They're just like you and me.
And just like you and I, looking for the chance to become a productive member of society. In Hibbing, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
%50 of the net proceeds go to the commission. We've already offered to give that 50% to the band for their economic development activities. Right now at our next meeting, without any ruling from anybody, the band could walk away with over $4 million.
Bankers from across Minnesota are optimistic about the state's economic future, although they and the rest of the financial community are waiting for President Clinton's economic stimulus program to go into effect. The chief concern is still the deficit.
But we do have a very large deficit. We do have to get it reduced, and we are hopeful that the Federal Reserve will actually come on its white horse to the rescue. If fiscal policy is restrictive, then perhaps monetary policy can be more accommodative.
The Federal Reserve may need to bump up interest rates briefly, but most analysts say the rates must remain low to keep businesses and consumers spending.
We have to get this deficit down to get business to make commitments to capital spending, to have consumers make commitments to durable goods. That takes time, and I think we're going to have to go through an extended period of very, very sluggish growth until that occurs.
Minnesota tends to remain insulated from recessions, but also from growth. Financial institutions are predicting any growth to be slow and steady.
Because the Northwest maintenance bases are on hold and few new businesses are expected to enter the market, investors are looking to take advantage of relative stability in the economy. If wages remain steady, inflation will be held in check, gradually building consumer confidence.
I think moderate, continual growth is a more desirable goal than to get the very fast spurts that just our basic underlying economy cannot continue to support.
The bottom line for the average consumer is interest rates on short-term loans. If they remain low, the Northeast Minnesota economy will continue to move slowly ahead. In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
We think we proved we're innocent of all of these. He's disappointed, he's crying, he's showing the first emotion I've seen him show in 4 months that I've gotten to know him.
Attorneys for both sides talked to reporters on the courthouse steps after the verdict was announced. The prosecution was pleased with the outcome.
We presented the evidence to the jury, and we argued that they should convict the defendant on all 3 counts, and they convicted him on 2 of the counts, and we think that they made the correct decision based on the evidence.
We're at 0 minus 1 because it's just the very beginning of talking about that, and for elected officials to get a concept about what managed care is all about.
Traditionally, police cars have had a big badge on the side of the car, and although that served us really well in the 60s and the 70s, by the time the end of the 80s and the 90s have rolled around, that's not really all that policemen do, is just go and show their badge. We do a lot more, and it's time to change the cars to reflect the image of the way policemen operate today.
The way it is right now, the ground is saturated. If we get a significant amount of rain in a relatively short period, we're going to have probably problems with flash flooding or very rapid rise in waters and creeks and streets.
You see it everywhere. Puddles, sloughs, wetlands, swamps, whatever you call them, they're breeding grounds for Minnesota's state bird. The abundance of rain this spring has created a mosquito heaven.
Well, since we've had a lot of rain this last year, there may be certain areas that mosquitoes normally breed in that may be expanded. And if they're expanded, there's always the potential for more eggs hatching.
The flooding in the southern part of the state may actually ease the mosquito problem there. Experts say many of the eggs may have already been flooded out and will never hatch. But here in the north, our weather has created an interesting situation.
Mosquitoes lay their eggs on the edge of standing water. When the ground they're sitting on dries out, the eggs kind of hibernate over the winter. This year, the damp weather we've been having, alternated as it has been with periods of sunshine and heat, may conspire to hatch not only this year's crop, but last year's hibernating eggs as well.
The experts say this double whammy crop of pesky bugs should emerge from the marshes within the next week or so. Here in the Northland, officials say the mosquito population is too large for any type of control attempts.
In this area, perhaps it's almost impossible because of the number of sites. We can't afford to do it, certainly because of the sites.
So all we can really do is hope for the best, but try to be prepared for the worst. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
that we have lost the parking in some of the fields around the airport, which means we've lost approximately 15,000 parking spaces. So we had to scramble and find some alternate parking, and fortunately we were able to find some.
You can't get into a job unless you're willing to devote yourself to that job and put the time that it takes into it. And that's why it's been so difficult for me to make this decision.
Ms. McAuliffe, can you tell me, please, how the Red Cross is handling the storage and distribution of all the supplies that are coming in from around America?
Well, I can tell you that we have warehouses throughout the flood-affected areas, and we have disaster headquarters throughout the 8 states. If we take a look at my map here where you see these red crosses, those signify our Red Cross disaster headquarters on the scene. So we send supplies and resources into the flood area and to where they are needed, and then our headquarters and other offices and Red Cross, local Red Cross chapters work together to organize their storage and their distribution.
And we know that the American Red Cross is also helping flood victims in the state of Minnesota. What figures do you have?
Well, specifically in Minnesota, I can tell you that we've served more than 1,500 meals, that we have nearly 80 Red Cross workers just in South Minnesota right now, and that we are estimating that we'll spend, at least $127,000 in South Minnesota. That's just to date. Those costs, of course, are rising all the time.
We're going to haul as much water as we can possibly take down to Des Moines, drinking water for the people. From my understanding, they're going to be out of water for up to a month, so any way we can help out, we want to.
We opened up this office to show the community and the range in Minnesota the support that that Rudy Perpich has still here on the range.
I believed that I could be more effective from the outside. I was wrong. You can't tame a wild animal by simply yelling at it. You have to roll your sleeves up and just get in there. But we have to start somewhere, and we need to have elected officials.
had that long. And maybe that neutral let go.
Hey, Mahar, you want them?
Nothing you can do about it, just keep on going. So we'll help, we'll get our customers back online tomorrow, and it shouldn't slow us down at all.
The directors. Right now, there's a 5-4 majority on the board that want to sell NECA at any cost or little cost in this instance. So if we're successful in removing any or all 4 directors, it could change the composition of the board, which could affect the ultimate negotiations.
We would have a hard time keeping these activities out of our parks and controlling our young people if they chose to spread beyond the area where they're proposing to have these games.
For instance, McKnight Foundation put a 10-year affordability requirement on their monies. Of low and moderate income people, but we certainly will continue generating housing capital. In light of the federal housing reductions there have been, we can't go on trying to meet the housing needs that exist in this city without continuing to work with corporations and foundations. So we do very much see that work ongoing.
At this time, I'd like to call an announcement that the Duluth Housing Trust, Sam Solon and Flossie Solon, Spirit Valley Citizens Neighborhood Development Association, Little Stocky Realty, Telephone Associates.
I've been informed that the request has to be referred to the City Council for a decision. The City Council is the only body that could remove a police commissioner. They would have to render that decision themselves.
They have a very high acceptance rate, so I think it's very high odds that they will in fact continue to review that information.
Yeah, I worked as co-chair on this, and we've been working on this for the past 3 years to make sure that Minnesota doesn't wind up being another state that allows bigotry.
Well, I always got to be optimistic. If I wasn't optimistic, I guess we wouldn't have any hope at all, but I think we can work it out. We'll have to see what's on the table.
Border, I go back and forth there quite often. I don't like getting stopped and getting hassled where I'm going, what I'm going to do there. I have a lot of relatives and friends over there.
What the Jay Treaty did is it recognized the right of Indian people to maintain their inherent right to move back and forth freely across the border.
We understand the First Nations people's wishes to demonstrate, and we'll do whatever we can to accommodate a safe, peaceful demonstration.
This was the scene March 28th as fire started in the basement and quickly engulfed Mr. D's bar and grill.
I said, Dad, nobody was hurt, nobody's hurt, nobody's in there, Dad, because it looked awful, and that's hard for me to talk about yet, because I see him running towards the door when it's coming out smoke. We have to grab him to hold him back.
That was the darkest hour for the Turways. Father and son had created Mr. D's together, and together they watched everything they had worked for go up in flames. But not a family to quit. They've worked together just as hard to rebuild and double the size of their enterprise. But they say without the support of family, friends, and the West Duluth business community, they would never have made it.
We've had opportunities to go elsewhere in the city, very lucrative opportunities, but we decided to stay here. This is where we're at. This is where our friends are at.
Dwayne and Al plan to open for 3 days, August 11th, 12th, and 13th for Spirit Valley Days. Those 3 days are among the most economically important for the West Duluth business community and among the most exciting. The Turways want to be part of the fun.
Some say the August 11th opening deadline is an impossible dream, but Dwayne and Al are confident they'll be ready. They say if you work hard enough, any dream can come true. At Mr. D's in West Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
It looks good because we are publishing a Finnish American reporter, which is geared to the younger people, and they are wild about it.
Teresa's going to give us a selection on the cello.
For women who do leave relationships out of battering, the violence does increase more. Our community don't make it safe enough for women to leave. They don't feel safe. And every time a woman does leave, their level of life goes down, where a man's life goes up. Do you have any figures or anything on that?
Counselors doing that. I can't believe that the counselors who voted to support it are not hearing, like I am, a lot of objections, and I think that it bears stopping and listening and being a community as we think these things through.